All right. So let's just begin, if there is such a thing, with a half an hour meditation. It's always nice to start a practice with a bit of gratitude. A single moment of practice is actually quite rare. We think about all the moments of our life, how many of them are spent in formal practice, actually getting here, arriving, sitting, being. Doing car starting meditation. Oh. Turn it back on mine. Also practicing turning inward, connecting with awareness and the heart as a group is even more rare. And we can reflect that we're sitting with individuals that are committed to connecting with more loving kindness and compassion, and rest into that and feel some comfort in sitting with Sangha. And since this is rare and precious, if you would like to mentally bring in people, friends and family into our practice, visualizing them sitting here with us, or even people throughout the world that might be going through a hard time, allowing them to enter into our circle and sit with us. This brings us to our Bodhisattva vow of wanting to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. sitting here with this intention as we open to this present moment on purpose, non judgmentally. And allow the breath and the senses to bring you back here to the present moment, sitting, breathing, and being. There's nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to achieve. Letting everything in, letting everything out. Sitting, breathing, being. Just arriving back. Allowing the eyes to open, body to move when you're ready. Should we keep going? Couple more hours. Oh, that's the best part right there. I'm gonna mess it up by the words, guaranteed. Uh, yeah, so welcome. We have a couple new people I know in person. Is it Cameron? Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself if you don't mind? Wonderful. Welcome. Fantastic. Are you local?
Yes, I moved here.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Great to have you. Was it Josh? Yeah, welcome. Yeah, yeah. How did you hear about us?
Actually, I met somebody who was telling me about meditation centers around.
Yeah.
LA, and they weren't in Long Beach, and we looked it up, and they said there's one here, and
Okay.
she actually was doing the online one, so she's there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, wonderful. And you have a practice already?
I've done my own stuff like through like the Calm app and stuff.
Yeah,
over
yeah.
Years, but this is my first time doing it with a community. So
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, welcome. Yeah. Anyone, I think everyone looks familiar online here. Yeah, so just about our group, we've been here doing nothing together for uh yeah, like 11 years. We received very little benefit at all, but we still show up for some reason. Uh, and it's cool. And here we are. So last week yeah,
And there's the email list. If you want to be on our email list, let me know.
thank you. Yeah, yeah, we have a sign up sheet there. So we have a Facebook group and yeah, an email list. And we have rotating teachers that are wonderful and yeah, great community. So last week we went over some of Atisha's slogans, Lojong slogans. Atisha was a fantastic Indian saint who kind of simplified some of the mind training slogans into 59 really pithy short slogans that are really fun to look at. It's interesting mind training. I remember when I first I moved to a Tibetan Buddhist center called Land of Medicine Buddha, and everyone was walking around with these shirts that said mind training on them. I was like, well, I can't wait to learn about this mind training. And then I got to my first like Lojong class, if you will, and it was all about bodhicitta, like about the heart practices. And that was before I realized mind and heart are like one thing. So when we say mind training, you'll notice a lot of these quotes and sayings or whatnot are really pertaining to the heart. So heart stream, mind stream, all the same, liberating the heart, liberating the mind. And so what I thought, I kind of selected a few of the slogans to look over last week that were more about perseverance. Some of them, uh, yeah, abandon any hope of fruition. I'm just going to just read a couple. Always meditate on whatever provokes resentment. This time, practice the main points. 3 of 3. Like there's slogans like this. Just by the way, if you haven't paid attention or haven't read them or anything like this. They're just slogans that sound like that, and then they need some commentary on top of it. And also, what I'll share is Judy Leaf. How many of you have read her PDF on the Lojong slogans? Yeah, she has this wonderful PDF that I will share on our newsletter and on our Facebook group. It's this free PDF. It's really, really good. It's again, it's very short too. So I thought I'd talk a little bit. So we went over perseverance last week, and this week I just kind of selected a few that I thought before that we'd go over kind of how to practice, because in Dharma and on the spiritual path, there's just a lot of information out there. Then, and as we go through 59 things to remember, which are very pithy, they're very short and succinct, and yet still 59 is a lot of things to remember. And there's a lot of like, do this and don't do that. And I used our new guru, ChatGPT, um, to look at how many of the slogans are cultivating and how many are abandoning. So there's 38, I think if I could read, 38 cultivating and 21 abandoning. And meaning 38 of them are saying cultivate this attribute of mind or this skill or something like this. And then 21 are abandoning, like don't do this, don't do that, kind of let go, like letting go, right? So we're cultivating things and then we're actually negating things. So in the Dharma, we say cultivating the wholesome, abandoning the unwholesome. This is like the very premise, the very base of the practice, right? And so I wanted to kind of look into how can we do this ourselves, and I think slogan number 9 is something like that, which is kind of turn every uh, use the slogans for everything. It's something like that, and even there's commentary on make up your own slogans to fit that situation, right? And again, we're going back to kind of tying in every moment to something, some skill that we've learned from the path. And so if we go back, what does this mean? It means that we want to cultivate mindfulness in each moment to understand like what is here, what's happening. This is the first piece. And I know mindfulness is super boring, right? Like mindfulness. But it's so true. Coming back to the present moment to see what is actually happening. So before we can apply the antidote, we have to know what's here, what is actually present. So the first thing to do is really paying attention to cultivating that mindfulness. And then I like to remember the wholesome and unwholesome, so we can put this into the categories of the hindrances and the 7 factors. Um, how many of you can, maybe if you don't mind listing the hindrances real quick? Doubt,
Over.
torpor. What's that?
Grasping.
Attachment, craving, grasping. Yeah. What's the opposite? Aversion. What's the opposite of torpor or dullness? Huh? Restlessness, worry, excitation of mind, right? So so when we're mindful, a lot of times when we're looking at mental states, these hindrances are a hindrance to a peaceful mind, right? So we could look at quote unquote negative afflictions and things like this, but a short little list is the hindrances so to pay attention to. So instead of like being mindful and remembering 59 slogans, we could notice attachment, aversion, worry, dullness, doubt. These are just 5, just paying attention. Things are pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, like things like this. So being awake and aware of this. Um, Also, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. What are the 4 foundations of mindfulness? Mindfulness of body, mindfulness of mind, Vedana, mindfulness of feeling tones. Natasha's rocking. What else? The mindfulness of dhammas or phenomena. right? Which means anything that's arising, mindfulness of what's arising. So we use this as the starting point. So mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feeling tones, mindfulness of mind, mindfulness of our surroundings, like everything is phenomena arising. And then we're noticing our reaction to that. What is our reaction to that? So our mind is perceiving these things, and we're having some relationship with what is arising. That relationship could be positive, negative, or neutral. Slogans are the antidote. They're like, hey, this is what's arising. How does it feel? It feels good. Okay, cool. Abandon that. We're Dharma practitioners. We don't like the good. Throw that out. Joking. But don't but be with it, but not grasp for it. If it stays or if it goes, it's okay. This is unpleasant. Okay, I know this is unpleasant, right? So not to have aversion to that unpleasantness. It's unpleasant. I know it's unpleasant. It's okay for that unpleasantness to exist, right? So we're being with it in that relationship. What's a good definition of mindfulness? What's John Kabat-Zinn's famous definition is one. There's lots of definitions.
Paying attention.
Paying attention on purpose, without judgment, to the present moment. Perfect. Paying attention to the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. Again, so when we say the four foundations of mindfulness, how are we meeting what's arising in the body, the emotions, the mind, everything, right? Meeting, we're paying attention to it, to the present moment on purpose, which means we have metacognition. We're conscious of consciousness. This is very rare, very unique. We're the only ones like on the planet we think that maybe have metacognition like that. Like I'm looking and I know that I'm looking. It's a very foundation of the Satipatthana Sutta from the Buddha, right? Where he talks about like I'm breathing, like we did, and I know that I'm breathing. It's very rare. So we use mindfulness to pay attention to different, aspects of it. Now that we're paying attention to different aspects of reality, again, what is our mind's reaction? And we're looking in particular, let's say, oh, the hindrances are arising. So I have some kind of aversion to it. Now, if we meet it with mindfulness and we abandon that aversion, which just means simply not following it, like this is arising, whatever it's attachment, aversion, dullness, worry, doubt is arising, that's okay. And if we allow it to be okay, what's going to happen to the phenomena? Because the phenomena has attributes. Everything has three phases. What are those three phases of everything? It arises, abides, and passes away. Yeah, yeah. Come on, Atisha, sorry. So it arises, abides, and passes away, right? So, and we're looking at this. We're looking at it from this neutral observer, if you will, paying attention to the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. It arises, it abides, and it falls away. So, if we have that view, arising, abiding, and falling away. So things are impermanent in nature, they're in flux. That that aversion can lose its bit of its grasp, right? The attachment aversion loses its grasp because not only are we noticing the empty nature of it, we're also noticing that I'm not that. I'm not my emotion. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my body sensation because I've rested into the knower of that. So there's what is arising and the knower of what's arising. Just automatically, there is a liberation of sorts just in that. And if there's a negation, then there's a negation of those hindrances, attachment, aversion, dullness, agitation, doubt, worry, all of that. Then appearing in mind is available the opposite of the hindrances, which is the positive attributes of mind. There's 7 of these, which is cool. There's only 5 hindrances, but 7 positive attributes of mind. And what are those? We've already mentioned one. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is the first one. So when there's a negation of the hindrances, when the hindrances are not present, then mindfulness arises. And it's kind of an interesting thing where they're not present because mindfulness has arisen, right? And I say present, really the attachment to them is not present. Like anger is present, but I'm not my anger. Hello, anger, how are you? Good to see you. See the difference in that? Like I'm angry, or even complete non-awareness, which is just anger. And then I wake up to anger. Hello, anger, how are you? And then I could see the knower of anger is not angry, right? And then the second part of this is, can I marinate in the knower of anger? And what are those attributes, right? But let's say we just have the mindfulness. Mindfulness leads to what? The seven factors. Mindfulness. What's another one that can arise? Let's say mindfulness of anger. So we have mindfulness of anger. What's like a Vedana practice? That's a mindfulness of emotions. Anger is arising. Investigation or curiosity is the next one. Investigation or curiosity. This is also there, like as a positive attribute of mind. And it's kind of this neutral, I love the word curiosity. Just like we're curious. And it's actually an innate, all of these are actually innate uh, attributes of mind that arises, like mindfulness arises, and there's an innate curiosity into this. Like, oh, anger's here, it's present, right? And what's the third one? So mindfulness leads to investigation, it leads to virya, energy, energy for the practice, right? I love when I look at something that you love. If you love something, you notice that these are already here. Like if you're like, oh, I'm so bored with this or that, because I'm not passionate about this. But if something you're passionate about, notice that there's automatically there's mindfulness, right? There's mindfulness. That mindfulness leads to some curiosity. It could be like mountain climbing or something. You see some new gear or something. You're totally into it, and that mindfulness and curiosity leads to energy. Like now you have energy. Like that's passion for it, right? So you have that, and then after we have this energy, it leads to joy and rapture. Joy or rapture. This joy and rapture can lead to calm or tranquility. This joy and tranquility can move to um, concentration, and that concentration leads to equanimity. These are the seven factors. And I say leads to, these can appear at any point, which is my point. Just like the aversion, just like the hindrances can appear at any point, and they can appear at any point. Any one of them can appear. It's not like sequential, like we have attachment, aversion, torpor, worry, doubt. They could just appear, and we know that they're there. And again, this all relation to phenomena appearing. How are we connecting to that which is around us? Also, we has any of you ever experienced a moment of mindfulness? A moment of I'm here and I know that I'm here. Yeah, absolutely. How about joy? Yeah, how about joy? How about calm? Any of you have ever been calm? How about equanimity, or I like to call like at ease? Like it's all good. Like at ease. We've all experienced this, right? So again, mindfulness, the rudder in the water of what is happening and what is my reaction to what is happening, and the abandoning the unwholesome and cultivating of the wholesome is literally paying attention to these things arising and not following the hindrances, which is these abandoning the 23 phrases abandoning. We're abandoning the unwholesome. I'm not going to follow you. And nurturing the 38, do this, do these ones, right? Do these ones. And if we're paying attention, a moment of anger sets the foundation for another moment of anger. And I love how neuroscience has got on board with this. They knew the neural nets, they're like grooves, these neural networks, I should say, neural networks. So when phenomena comes in and we act a certain way, when another stimulus comes in, it goes to that same part of the brain again and again. It's like these grooves, right? So when we pay attention to our mental states and we recognize this is where it's going, and I can abandon the unwholesome, and I can cultivate, which means marinate in, rest in, further the wholesome. And this is why we practice things like loving kindness, non-judgmental awareness, compassion. Because the more that we do that, the more that we marinate in these things, the easier it is to connect with them. And I think the other cool part about it is that we're actually resting in what we are. And this is why the hindrances will be overthrown anyway, the longer that we sit, right? If we just sit, you're left with equanimity. If you're allowing everything to come and go, you're like left with equanimity, with gentleness, with kindness. So I think at the very base of all of this kind of talk here, as I always talk too long from what I think I'm going to get through. But anyway, is the commitment to this in general, the commitment to self-liberation compared to ego clinging. So we talked about like this is really these slogans, just like the spiritual path. It's really about removing like this ego clinging and moving into more loving kindness and compassion. But there's a commitment in that. What I mean by that is sometimes it feels good to confirm the self. We say ego clinging like it's a really bad thing, like we're egoic and maybe, you know, conceited or something like that. Not really. We're just saying that we're affirming a permanent fixed self. And even things like anger, like being angry, makes us feel alive, like we exist in a certain way, that there is a self and something's happening to this self, right? That there is a confirmation of self, even by something as simple as moving into anger, or something like gossiping, or things like this. There's this reaffirming that I exist, and there's a part of us that likes that, like I exist, and um, there's something like this, even this part, this thing that exists is being harmed or being or having some success or something like this, which relatively is totally fine if we also understand the ultimate truth side. So the relative truth, and then the ultimate truth side, which is none of this exists. I'm connected to all beings. Like another person's success is my success. And moving into this realm of being, like, how can I be liberated beyond just trying to um, kind of feed myself, but how can I feed the global consciousness? So this liberation, and again, when we speak of attachment or craving, it's um, and suffering, it has nothing to do with not experiencing pleasure or anything like this. It's the attachment to all of that. And that takes a certain commitment, because at the end of the day, there is a lot of these abandoning types of of trainings, and there's a lot of this annihilation of quote unquote ego, again, that which we build ourself up as. And there's a lot of commitment and faith and courage that there's something beyond that. Like I say a lot, like the ego doesn't mind shape shifting, but hates to be annihilated. I love that line. I think Adyashanti says that. Um, but so true. Like enlightened Cayce, no problem. No Cayce, big problem. Big problem with the mind. And that takes, again, it takes a lot of courage to say, well, I'm going to abandon this. Well, what's on the other side? If I'm not my thoughts, emotions, and body sensations, I've said this before in different, trainings or teachings, and they're like, well, what am I then? Like, what do you mean I'm not my thoughts, emotions, and body sensations? I say, well, yeah, if they go, you don't go. They come and go, you don't go. Well, what am I? That's the cool experiment. Like, what am I? What am I beyond these thoughts, emotions, and body sensations? What remains, as Longchenpa would say? And so a lot of these quote unquote mental afflictions are things that we feel in a way keep us safe because it keeps this quote unquote self intact, right? Even like I'm a great Dharma practitioner, or I'm a good person, or I'm a giver, like I am a blah blah blah, right? So we didn't get much into the more slogans. Um, but I think the basis of how do we meet the teachings, whether it could be 59 slogans you're trying to remember, it could be loving kindness practice, it could be moment to moment mindfulness throughout the day. Without the kind of infrastructure of mind, like the right intention, the right commitment, and also the mindfulness to see things in a certain way. Like without all of that stuff, uh, these teachings, whatever teaching that you want to quote unquote learn experientially, is not going to be accessible. Like we need these things first for the slogans and things like this to be accessible. There's not. And one of the slogans is about experiential, being experienced, not yeah. Slogan 51, this time practice the main points. The first point, benefit others. It's about benefiting others. The second one, practice is more important than study. And the third main point is that loving kindness is the best practice of them all. I love that. And I think the second main point is my favorite in that um, practice is more important than study. I think an 80-20 rule, like I don't know if it's exactly right, but practice 80% of the time, listen 20% of the time, read the Dharma books, listen to podcasts and all that stuff. We have three phases of the practice: listening, like contemplating, meditation, and then fruition. That listening and contemplating should be just enough to know what the heck to do, which we do, sitting, breathing, and being. Like we know how to follow the breath. We know how to do loving kindness. These are actually fairly easy to learn. And then 80% of the time doing that. Because if not, it's all perishable. Like nothing that we can hold on to in the mind is going to lead to anything real. And we're not even going to progress on the things that we're reading. How many of you have read, I know all of us, but how many of you have read something and then you read it again like a year later and you're like, oh my gosh, that's what they're talking about? Uh, I think it's funny with Dharma stuff where it's all the same, like there's no permanent fixed self, like we're actually awareness and all these things. And so you could read the same line, you know, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or 5 months ago. You read it again, you're like, oh my gosh. It's like and it sounds funny saying it like, oh, it's just like this. It's like, oh yeah, duh. I've been reading about it for decades or something like this, but when we taste it ourselves, oh, then it really becomes. Before that, it was just something that I read or sounds good or something. So these all point to experiential understanding, which again takes some courage and faith in ourselves. Yeah. So I want to give us time. Let me see if I can go over maybe one other a couple of them. I just picked out a couple that I like. That was the main thing I wanted to chat about today, but I did select a couple that I like. The one I just went over, 51. Um, always meditate on what provokes resentment. That's 49. Always meditate on what provokes resentment. Remember, one of the oldest translations of meditations, like an old Sanskrit translation, means to become familiar with. It's one of the oldest translations of meditation, to become familiar with. What I like about that one is always meditate on, become familiar with what provokes resentment. Become familiar with that. All of it. Like, what is it? Is it real? You could always look at the emptiness of it, whatever that thing is. Also, look at why. Why does it provoke? And to whom? Like this resentment of, like, who's the knower that is being quote unquote hurt or something? Where is that piece of the puzzle, right? This is all about our reaction to phenomena that's arising. And then we're applying antidotes, right? The whole thing. That there is phenomena arising. There is something arising within my consciousness. In my consciousness awareness, things are appearing. What is appearing? What reaction am I having to what is appearing? And if it is unpleasant, are there antidotes that I can apply? Prajna, wisdom, or the other end of the other side of the coin, loving kindness, compassion that I can apply. And the coolest ones to work on, because they are the resentment pieces, because those are the ones that are pointing to our strongest grasping, like we're grasping, or that grasping or aversion. When we see those are really, really strong, if we can, quote unquote, unravel those, it could lead to the biggest feeling of liberation if we can see the things that are, quote unquote, hurting us the most. You know, I like to say, like, when we practice meditation, thoughts are coming and going, and we practice non-grasping mind, and we come back to whatever the object is. It could be the breath. Thoughts are arising. We notice that they're arising. We notice that we have grasped onto them, and we come back to the breath. So we're always practicing non-grasping mind. It's all the Buddha really taught, is non-grasping mind, which doesn't seem like a big deal when we're meditating. But if we were to not grasp on our most suffering thought, what if our most suffering thought came by and we had the skill and the ability to not connect with it, to not become it, to not be smothered by it, but to maintain equanimity, which is innate in awareness, to watch it come and go? And we feel like the liberation in that, right? The freedom in that, right? So when we look at the things that cause us the most pain, suffering, resentment, we see that attachment aversion is really, really strong. These are the best ones to work with. With wisdom, I do want to point out, with wisdom, I mean, if they're too much, if they're too strong, in other words, they carry us away. I'm talking about like high mental afflictions like depression, anxiety, these types of things. It's not skillful to actually sit with them because they can overthrow us. So be careful there. But if that's not the case, if we could be with them but not follow them, then it's really good to connect with them. Okay, one. One more, I think. Oh, 28 is abandon any hope of fruition. Abandon any hope of fruition. This is all pointless, guys. Come to terms with this right away. I love this one. The closer we get to truth, the more paradoxical it becomes. The closer we get to truth, the more paradoxical it becomes. Um, abandon any hope of fruition is taking the result as the path. It's a very like non-dual type of a statement in that by hopes of fruition, we create a mental concept, and that mental concept stands in the way of fruition. Right? So this is the only thing that we practice that has such and such a goal where we immediately abandon the goal as we start to practice. It's like training for the Olympics and not giving a total crap if you actually make the Olympics. But you're going to train every single day super, super hard, but not really care, kind of. No, but really being the idea is behind it is that there is a transcendent quality of practice, and we're transcending the mental concepts, or even like we sit down to meditate, like I am meditating throughout the I and throughout the meditation, throughout the meditator and throughout the meditation, and you're getting close to actual meditation, right? But as soon as there's somebody meditating, there's not true meditation. The technique of meditation overthrows that, which is really cool and delivers us into like true meditation. So the same thing, like as we practice, it's okay. It's actually very comforting to throw out this idea of fruition, like, oh, when am I going to attain this? Or so and so, it sounds like so and so attained something or something. We don't need to actually, it's not the we're not competing here, or we don't need, that's why I like to say during meditation is nowhere to go, nothing to do, nothing to achieve. It's true. Like we're abandoning already everything that we're not. We already are what we're seeking. I already am what I'm seeking. I don't need to seek it like that. So abandon all hope of fruition. There's nothing to ripen. I already am that, right? I'm just sitting, being, and breathing. One little quick note, and then I want to go into groups, is that if you notice that anything that's cool that comes up in practice, anything, any experience is usually accidental. Notice that you weren't striving for it, right? Um, Trungam Trungpa is famous for saying enlightenment is an accident, and meditation makes you accident prone, right? Very well put. All right, so let's go ahead and move into groups and maybe talk about your infrastructure. I talked about a few slogans there, which you can go ahead and chat about too if they resonated with you. But also like your infrastructure, what brings you back to the practice? What types of tools that you do you like to bring you back to the practice? Um, and we can go from there. So if you're in person, yeah, no larger than 4 groups, and I think I'll just take everybody here. I'll just move to a second room, and I'll chat with the people online. Yeah. So coming back, we have about 5 more minutes. If anyone wants to share with the larger group, kind of what came up for them. Absolutely, yeah.
The idea of, I guess it came up when you were talking about grasping, that I often find I'm sort of new to longer extended periods of time in meditating, so we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was meditating, I was thinking about the idea that our brain naturally works against the sameness and towards the novelty.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're trying, it's like all of our sights, so seeing, smelling, tasting, feeling, those are all kind of the same when you're in this, or the same-ish. And then sounds are a little bit more novelty because there's stuff around. And then of course thoughts and emotions have more of a novelty to them in view. And so my thoughts were, as I was going through this meditation, was our instinct is to go towards those, the novelty. And yet it seems like the practice should take us more back to the sameness, like the breath or whatever it is that's consistent. And how do you do that? How do you fight the novelty, so to speak? I guess fighting is not the right word.
Yeah, well, the novelty is really the habitual, like big picture, it's a habitual grasping. Like we are just thought addicts. We love it. We love to grab on, and there's some subtleties of grasping, and there's like the candy of the mind, like you mentioned, like novelty. It could be like this or that. It wants to go here, it wants to go there. But really, you want to actually look at all the phenomena arising, whether it be novelty or this and that, as kind of what's called like one taste. In other words, non-judgmental awareness is not good or bad, and just simply pay attention to the practice of noticing that the mind has wandered. You can note there's like what we call a noting practice, like why it wandered here. It's very quick and experiential. It's just like, okay, and then bring it back. So the how is just doing it over and over, like running. Like how do you run a marathon? Run a mile. Like how do you? It doesn't matter if like how do I release like these novelty ones or this or that. Actually, this practice of just returning and staying, like returning, staying, returning, staying, over and over and over. And that habituates the mind into mindfulness of being noticing where the mind is. And then also, every time we do that, whatever we're grasping onto, it loses a little bit of its concreteness. And we start to move back like that. So just by doing, yeah. In the beginning, it's so foreign to come back because the mind is usually grasping 99.999% of the time on something. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. So if you have a thought which provokes a strong emotion.
It's just a little hard for me to hear what they're saying. I don't know if there's.
Okay, I'll reiterate.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have a thought that evokes a strong emotional reaction in your body or sensation, for me, I feel conflicted about whether to try to return from that sensation, or because that feels sort of like an aversion to experiencing,
Yeah.
or to like feel like observe it until it passes.
Yeah.
It's like whether going deeper into that sensation or trying to take myself away from it.
Great question. Yeah. So Cameron was saying that when there's a strong like emotion or something like this, she's that the question is, do I stay with it and move deeper into it, or do I move back away from it into like the breath or something? But the latter seems kind of like an aversion, like I'm not actually sitting with it, right? Is that what you're saying? So twofold. Um, in the beginning, so the teaching is if you can notice it and come back to the breath, because if not, the mind will have a tendency to jump from here to here to here to here. It's like, oh, I want to sit with this, I want to sit with this, and it's not quote unquote on the leash. It's just going from one thing to another, except when things are consistent. So the cool thing about mindfulness is you need to be mindful of something. It doesn't matter what. You can shift your mindfulness. I'm doing breath meditation. The dog is barking. The dog won't stop barking. I'm going to do dog barking meditation, right? Like I'm sitting, I'm doing breath meditation. I feel like some agitation. The agitation won't go away. I've looked at it. I've come back to the breath. It's still present. Now I'm going to do agitation meditation, which holding it with non-judgmental awareness. So it's both. So paying attention to, is it really consistent and stubborn? Then I'm going to sit with it and just go with body pain. If you're doing like long meditations and your knee hurts, if your knee really hurts, stand up or whatever. But if not, unpleasant sensation in knee meditation, we can do this. We can shift and change, but not at every little inkling, because the mind loves that. Oh, over here, over here, over here. No, I'm back here. Yeah. Good questions. Okay, let's just dedicate the merit. Let's go ahead and sit one last time together. We dedicate the merit because we know that there's interconnectedness. We're all breathing the same air, drinking the same water, all collectively swimming in the same consciousness. And so any benefit that we have individually somehow touches all beings. And so we want to go ahead and explicitly offer this up. So any goodness, any wisdom, any realizations that were acquired individually and collectively today, may this be of benefit to all beings. May all beings everywhere, without exception, may they all be happy, truly happy, and free from suffering. Om Mani Padme Hum.
Casey, can I share something with the group?
Sure.
Last week I thanked Brian and Amber for helping me out in different ways. Next Wednesday, I'm doing a total hip replacement, and Casey and Susan have been working on a meal train. Thank you as well for that. I just want to really acknowledge that I appreciate the help that I've been getting from the Sangha, and that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And we'll be with you during that, with our hearts and minds, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks.
Also, real quick, our Sangha friend Kathy, who's not here today, she has a lot going on. Her husband is having surgery tomorrow, so sending that
Cool.
out. And then
Great.
Kathy as well.
What time will be?
I know they're going to the hospital 8:30. I don't know what
Yeah.
time surgery is, but it
Okay.
is tomorrow. And it's not going to be laparoscopic. They have to cut him, so it's a little more intense than sometimes you think of.
Yeah.
So yeah, just send that out to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, Sue.
Got a quick one.
Mm.
Just that, we're gonna be skipping a June writing group. We have a mindfulness writers group, which anybody's welcome to join, so you can contact me, my name and contact will be on the newsletter. Did you mention Donna? Did somebody mention Donna?
Not yet, but yes, remember Donna.
Yeah.
Yes.
$100 a
Yeah.
piece.
Is Anthony so well, we don't need to worry about Anthony anymore? How you doing?
So
Anthony?
Anthony was here earlier. He jumped off, but the last correspondence is that he's still in the hospital, but he's still in the hospital, but he's getting better every day. And they think that's now it's just a matter of time. It's just like he's just consistently getting better. He's gonna make a full recovery, and he's just kind of going through whatever the process is. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Casey,
Uh,
for sharing that.
much love.
Okay.